Let's start tonight, though, in Nova Scotia, where a massive cleanup is underway after post-tropical storm Fiona walloped the Atlantic provinces. Many schools and businesses in Nova Scotia are closed, and tens of thousands of people are still without power. Cape Breton was hit particularly hard. Look at that right there. More than 200 people had to leave their homes in that region because of the damage. And over in Lower Prospect, it's believed an 81-year-old man was swept out to sea. Tim Houston is the Premier of Nova Scotia. He's with us from Dartmouth. Hi, Premier Houston. Thanks for making the time. I know it's very busy for you right now.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I know that you've also toured some of the harder hit places in your province, including Cape Breton now in person. What impression have you been left with? Like, what have you seen?
Yeah, thanks so much. I mean, Nova Scotians were asked to prepare for what would be a historical storm, and Fiona certainly was that. I mean, the damage that we've seen through eastern Nova Scotia is, in particular is pretty heartbreaking. The amount of trees that are down, roads impassable, people displaced from their homes. Of course, with the high winds, roofs ripped off. I had a chance to speak to some people in Cape Breton specifically, who had trees that fell on their homes, and just hearing their stories of, the storm came overnight, so the sounds of the destruction around them were pretty horrifying. So there's a lot of damage for sure, but in the true Nova Scotian way, I mean, the crews are out there clearing, restoring, trying to recover, and you're seeing entire communities come together in support of each other. So that part of it it makes you proud to be Nova Scotian, but the damage is really, really heartbreaking.
Part of the damage or the effects of it is, and you mentioned it there, was the power outages. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is about 177,000 people are still without power. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's certainly in the range that I'm hearing, and that initially was over 400,000. So it is coming down, but power restoration is the power restoration and wellness checks are the two main really priorities, and getting people back into their homes, of course. But there's a lot of people, with the communications issues that we've had. There's a lot of people just couldn't be reached by phone, or can't get to them because their roads are impassable. So we're concerned about those people. And I know volunteer firefighters and other first responders and the military too are now on that, doing those wellness checks. But power restoration, wellness checks, those are the real main priorities right now.
Is there, and I know it's probably hard to attach a timeline, but for people who are watching, who maybe tell their neighbors who are without power, is there any sort of timeline for those remaining customers who are without power right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly all over the map, depending on the regions and some of the damage we're seeing. But there's, I guess it would be safe to say that there are many Nova Scotians that are looking at additional days from this point. But the crews are out there for sure. There's an incredible number of crews out working to get the power back on. Those crews are obviously Nova Scotian, but crews from New Brunswick, from Quebec, from Ontario, from Maine. So the support that is pouring into Nova Scotia, it's noticed by Nova Scotians, and it's a good feeling to know that the support is there. But the crews are out working. We're just urging people to have patience, just with the amount of trees that are down, and you see some of these streets. I've been on just power poles just snapped in half, and looking down an entire street and seeing 25, 30 poles in a row snapped in half and laying on the road. These things are going to take time to fix, and then intersprinkle all the trees and the debris in them. So it's going to take time. We know that, but the crews I want to assure people that people are working as quickly as they can.
I know you also mentioned the federal assistance in the form of the military. Do you have any update for us on the conversations there, and if you think that the province will be requesting additional military personnel going forward?
Yeah, so the military has been very helpful. I've heard from the minister, but I've also heard from the local senior officers locally here, and there have already been deployments. They're already on the ground. And the message that's come to me is that, as more are needed, they will absolutely do what they can, but they need, specific orders. So that's working with the MO to know exactly, we want you to go to this area and clear these trees or tarp this roof. So the relationship has been very tight. It's a very good relationship, and I suspect they'll be there as we need them. They have been so far, and we're appreciative of that.
Do you anticipate, based on what you've surveyed so far, or based on your assessment of the province's needs, that there will be a requirement for more resources from the feds, like more military in the future?
I personally, I think so. Just knowing the sheer volume of trees, for example, that need to be cleared from roads, need to be cleared from lines, and then so the more hands working on that, the better. So then that will allow the power crews to come and be more focused on the power restoration. So it's my expectation that we'll be continuing to look for support, and I feel confident that will come as it's needed. But it's really, I mean, we're past in many parts of the province past the initial assessment, and now on to the actual recovery, so we can move a little quicker on making those asks.
And Premier, just before I let you go, I heard you talk about this in your press conference. I do think it's worth re-emphasizing for our audience watching tonight, for people in Nova Scotia who need some help to recover from the disaster, but might in ordinary circumstances have to wait for that help to arrive. I know you did announce some more immediate assistance, and I'm wondering, I know there's a bunch of different pockets of that, but if your message to Nova Scotians watching tonight, if they're wondering where to go to get that help, what should they do?
Yeah, so we did announce a kind of an unprecedented suite of programs to support Nova Scotians and really try to fill the gaps where their insurance might not be there, or might take longer. So those are everything from assistance with tree removal to assistance with spoiled food to assistance with accommodations where you've been ordered out of your house. So there's a whole suite of things, and I appreciate you asking the question on the direction, because to the extent you have access to a phone, 211 is a Nova Scotia service that will direct you through. But certainly the Red Cross has been incredible. Local community centers, local volunteer fire departments, MLA's offices. There's a number of authorities that can help. But my message is to Nova Scotians is we want to be here to support through this time. We will do as a government what we can. We'll do that in conjunction with municipalities, with the federal government, and certainly with other partners. But we understand that many Nova Scotians are suffering right now. And I feel that personal responsibility to support those Nova Scotians, we will do what we can.
Okay, Premier, I'll leave it there. Thanks so much for thinking of everyone in your province and certainly the region. Thank you.
Thank you. It's much appreciated.
Let's move over to Newfoundland and Labrador now. These are some of the scenes of destruction in Basques, Newfoundland. The town was one of many communities hit early Saturday by heavy rain, powerful winds, and a catastrophic storm surge. The body of a 73-year-old woman was recovered yesterday. The storm swept her and part of her home out to sea. 100 soldiers have been deployed to the region to help with the recovery. Andrew Furey is the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. He's in Basques tonight. Hi, Premier Furey. Good to have you with us. Thanks for making the time.
Hi, Bashy. How are you?
I'm okay. My bigger question, how are you and how are the residents of Newfoundland and Labrador? I know you had the opportunity today to tour around some of the harder hit areas. Give us a sense, if you could, of the damage you saw.
The damage is overwhelming in certain areas. It's really emotional. It's emotional for me. It's emotional for people in the communities who have lost their homes. There was, of course, the terrible, unfortunate incident of a loss of life. It's overwhelming. The devastation that has the wells and surges in particular is. Your viewers have seen the pictures of rooftops floating and homes floating, and to be on the ground and to talk to the people who own them, and to understand that those roofs, they just don't represent a house, they represent a home. People's spent 40 years in some of those homes, and they're completely gone. And so it's emotional. It's emotional for me. It's emotional for the people on the ground. But Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are resilient and resourceful, and we'll certainly rebuild from here.
If you could reflect for a moment just on what that rebuilding effort will involve, and more specifically, I guess, where your efforts and the province's efforts and focus will be over the coming days.
Sure. So in any natural disaster, there's different phases of recovery, of course, and we're still really in the response phase. They're still really doing a needs assessment and an inventory, if you will, of the damage that's been done. There's several communities, not just Port aux Basques, of course, it's the whole southwest coast. So we're trying to get an exact handle on the infrastructure damage, the housing damage, and from there then move into a coordinated effort to rebuild, starting with the immediate obvious, which would of course be removal of debris, and then into the next phase of debris, which is of course rebuilding homes. It's going to require a lot of coordination, and I'm quite grateful for the federal government support here, and it'll be coordinated across all three levels of government, and the emergency coordination system will certainly play a role there. So we'll be coordinating efforts across all levels of government, ensuring that the needs of the communities are met with the skills of people who, for example, from the military, who can be provided. But there's still an incredible needs assessment that needs to be done. As you can imagine, some of these homes look like they're structurally sound, but I'm not a civil engineer. We need to make sure that those homes are safe for people to return to. But we saw one home, for example, which was uplifted and turned about 30 degrees and burnt islands. And again, is that safe to go back into, even though it looks intact from the outside? Someone needs to go and do an assessment of that. So that's what's happening in this immediate phase. No different really than in any other natural disaster.
I just want to let our audience know we have a bit of a connectivity issue with you. You're freezing a little bit at times. I just want them to know, but we do want to proceed with the interview because it's really important that we get information out to people living in Newfoundland and Labrador about this. You mentioned the federal government, the levels of government working together. Do you anticipate you'll need more help, for example, from the military in the coming days and weeks?
Well, that's what the needs assessment will help us determine. I'm quite grateful for the military's help, and there will be 100 people available, as we've heard Minister Anand say, and we'll also be supported by Navy personnel and a ship who will be coming to the southwest coast. But we still need to make sure that the skills of those being provided match the needs of the communities. So that work is still ongoing, but I'm quite confident that it can be achieved.
Okay, Premier Furey, thanks so much for lending us some of your time. I know it's busy there for everyone, and we sure are thinking of all of you in Newfoundland and Labrador. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Vashi, and thanks for everybody who's reached out to help the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. It's greatly appreciated.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.